Good evening. Welcome to Ask 9. I'm Becky Phelps.
And I'm Jim Mertens. We're so glad you joined us. You are inside, which is good because it has been a rough morning on into this afternoon. If you didn't have to get up and out of the house before noon, it wasn't that bad because the wind wasn't that strong, it seemed.
I went up for my lunch break around like 11:30.
Yeah.
And that was okay because it was sunny, it was nice outside.
And you feel better that way.
I felt better. I was admittedly very bundled up.
Yeah,
I take layers very seriously.
Oh, and you should, yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it is not a great time to be going outdoors. And if you are going outdoors, please, please, please wear your layers, bundle up. It is just so, so cold.
Yeah, what is it? It's December 4th.
December 4th.
This
and it
feels
is
so
freezing.
January already because by now, we'd be waiting for the snow. Are we going to have a white Christmas type of thought,
Do you like a white Christmas?
Of course.
Some people do not. Some people are so anti-snow.
Well, yeah. I mean, you live in the. Here's the thing. I don't like complaining about the weather.
Yeah. Because what can you do about it?
Kind of what can you do about it? It's like, you just deal with it. I like summer much more than winter. I like getting out. I like doing stuff. In the winter, I don't necessarily like being out in the cold that much. I just don't. I just hibernate more than anything else. So I have seasons I prefer, but I don't want to complain about. I mean, you'll complain it's a little cold out, and all that stuff. But it's like you said, we've lived here. I've lived here. You've lived here your entire life in the Midwest. It's like, deal with it.
At this point, yeah. I lived for a period of time in Kansas in college, and that was so icy, but not as much snow.
See,
a lot of ice.
And I lived for, I think, 6 years in West Michigan, where the storm systems would hit Lake Michigan, and you had that lake effect snow, which was absolutely amazing. And I learned a lot because in West Michigan, they actually had vineyards and all that, because when the weather system hits Lake Michigan and goes across, it moderates the temperature. So what we had, sadly, in West Michigan was a lot of cloud cover. It was one of the cloudiest cities. Grand Rapids is one of the cloudiest cities during the winter. And a lot of snow at times, but moderating temperatures. So that was kind of nice. But a lot of snow.
A little bit of weather knowledge to start off your evening.
I learned so much about lake effect. I mean, it's just really interesting and when you see these maps, you see these forecasters, you take a look, especially the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, or if you take a look at Rochester, New York, or that area, or Cleveland, anything around the Great Lakes, it's like they had nailed, and they're walled up because of that lake effect. And it was so weird because I still remember. I know we're way off topic. I still remember.
That's all right.
So there's this, in Michigan, it's like M12 or M42. That's what they call their state highways. And there was a state highway that went basically from like Holland, Michigan, and would go down to Kalamazoo. And I remember on that highway, it was like 6 inches of snow, and a mile either way was nothing. Because it just hits in a weird way. So hard to forecast. That's why it's kind of fun. They sometimes do forecasts anywhere between 2 and 47 inches. And when it comes to lake effect snow, you almost have to do that because some people will get very little and some people will get a lot. You don't. That's my story.
Well, at least we only got a foot of snow last weekend.
They, you know what? They hit it on the mark.
I was really impressed.
Yeah, I mean they were saying basically 8 to 14, and I think it was anywhere between. I guess officially in Cedar Rapids it was 8, although at one point I heard it was 10, and then some areas did get 12 to 14 inches. It was they nailed that one right. So
maybe a little more snow coming up here, but
a lot of credit to the weather team. So
we'll leave that to our incredible weather team, and we will get down to business here tonight. We are talking about the Affordable Care Act tax credits that have been such a big topic in Congress lately.
Yeah, basically closing down Congress because the Democrats definitely wanted some guarantees of this factor of Obamacare.
Yes. So that, again, the main reason the government shutdown lasted so long, and now a very big hot topic. It's set to come up for debate next week. And we've heard this week from some Iowa Congress members their thoughts on what to do about these federal tax credits that are set to expire at the end of December. So some members of Congress, it's very divided right now. Some members of Congress want to totally get rid of the tax credits.
It's even divided among Republicans.
Yes. Some want to just like tweak it a little bit. Some want to keep it exactly the way it is. It's very all over the place. So it'll be interesting to see what we do here in debate. But again, ahead of that, we as a news station get opportunities weekly, sometimes monthly, to talk to members of Congress. They open up media availabilities either through the phone or sometimes over like a Zoom call. So as you might imagine, this was a pretty hot topic that a lot of reporters were wanting to ask about. And so we'll start with Senator Chuck Grassley, who was asked about what he thinks about these federal tax credits.
This is a subject of debate next week. It was specifically set aside as a compromise with the Democrats to get the government opened up, that we would have this week of debate on this very subject. And I guess I'm going to have to see how that all plays out. I would expect that us Republicans would have alternatives to what's being proposed now by the Democrats. And I think it would be I want to make very clear that when there's subsidies that were put in place during the pandemic for income people over 400% of poverty, I'm not for repeating that mistake, but for people under 400% of poverty, where it's been for a decade or longer, we're not going to affect that program at all. In other words, people that can't really afford health insurance is going to get a subsidy. People that can afford health insurance are not going to get a subsidy.
So Senator Grassley, he is of the opinion that it's time to bring the credits back to the limits they used to have before the COVID-19 pandemic. When that pandemic hit, the credits were opened up a little bit more, so more people were eligible for them.
And this is a big deal because, I mean, it's a relatively popular program across America.
Yes.
And so Republicans kind of know that, they had tried earlier to get rid of so-called Obamacare, and it didn't work. I mean, the famous vote of John McCain on the Senate floor. And so now it seems like at this point, Republicans, or a number of Republicans, are just looking for reforms that will make sure that the government spending on the program isn't getting out of hand. So that's kind of what Chuck Grassley is saying in that soundbite that we heard. And he, along with a lot of Republicans, are just waiting to find out what's going to be introduced next week.
You mentioned this is divided among even Republicans. Representative Zach Nunn has supported a bipartisan 2-year extension for the current tax credits. Representative Ashley Hinson held a phone call press conference with the media, I believe, this very morning, and was asked if that is a workable solution. We'll hear her response.
Well, I think my biggest concern is ending the fraud and abuse here, because we have some incredibly wealthy folks who have been able to take advantage of a system that really should be used for working class and vulnerable Americans. What I have tried to focus on as we have this bigger conversation around healthcare and the ACA additional tax credits here is how do we make sure we're empowering patients and families to make the healthcare choices that are best for them? And so that's why I like more of a HSA model, where we put those dollars in my constituents' hands as opposed to that of big insurance companies. So that those kinds of proposals, in my mind, are the way we should be going here, because they send the subsidies directly to the consumer. And so that protects consumer choice. And it also makes sure we're not subsidizing wealthy families or big health insurance companies. So that's the approach that I'm trying to encourage here. Again, I'm a part of these conversations in the House about how we're going to advance the ball here. I don't think health insurance should be a bargaining chip. It is people's lives and the health of them and their families. So as I look at these conversations around healthcare, I'm looking at details of all these proposals, but I'm not going to commit to supporting any of them until I see them, number one, cross the finish line in the other chamber and make it over as a serious proposal. But number two, it has to be something, again, that meets those requirements of protecting taxpayers and lowering costs at the same time.
It is very important to point out that next year is an election year.
Yes.
And all of these lawmakers know that no matter how they vote on this, it will be used in one way or another in advertising throughout the campaign. Yeah. Whether it's Republicans against other Republicans, or Democrats against Republicans, or Republicans against Democrats. It's going to be a campaign issue once again.
Absolutely. This is something that impacts the tens of millions of Americans who use this, not to say that the other millions of Americans who have very strong opinions about the Affordable Care Act.
We should also point out that there's another big deadline coming up. Right now it's December 4th. December 15th is the last day to enroll in or to change your plans if you're going to get coverage starting January 1st. In other words, if you don't want your coverage to lapse, you have to make your decisions by December 15th. That's the last day to enroll in or change your plans. Then your coverage would start January 1st. If you don't make that deadline, the last deadline is January 15th. That's when open enrollment ends. But then after that point, you can only qualify for special enrollment period, and there's a whole bunch of different dates when your coverage would start. You may not get the cheapest of rates at that point. So December 15th is the big date.
And again, Congress is scheduled to debate this next week in D.C., so we will be keeping up with what happens with these tax credits.
And hopefully hear once again from our lawmakers on how they did finally decide, once they did find out exactly what the proposal is that's going to be before Congress.
Well, thank you for joining us for Ask 9. We have Weekend Watch coming up at 6:30 here on streaming. You can join Corey and I for an in-depth look at what to expect with your very wintry, cold weather this weekend.
Well, we're expecting some snow, and I know that they've been changing the numbers, and the track of the storm has been changing. So it's great to have this streaming program so that you can get a little more details on that. Corey and the team, great at explaining. And like we said, really nailed it over this last weekend. And they work really hard to get it right, of course, for this weekend as well.
So after the 6 with Jim and Beth, make sure you stick around here on streaming for Weekend Watch. But again, thank you for joining us here on Ask 9. If you have a question you'd like us to look into, send us a message on Facebook or shoot us an email. Have a great evening.